UK car production slumped to its lowest level since 1952 in September, down more than 27% on the year, as the country's largest automotive employer, Jaguar Land Rover, grappled with a cyber attack that shut down its operations for 5 weeks. That is enormous, isn't it? A new report by the Cyber Monitoring Centre suggests the attack was the costliest in British history, estimated to have cost nearly £2 billion in what it called a Category 3 systemic event. I don't know what that means, but it sounds serious. Early figures from JLR, which accounts for 4% of UK's goods exported annually, suggest the attack dealt a heavy blow, with wholesales down by nearly 25% in its fiscal second quarter. Whilst a survey by the Black Country Chambers of Commerce, which is an area in the Midlands, by the way, revealed companies across JLR's supply chain had to make redundancies. This amid warnings that cybercrime is on the rise after other high-profile incidents at the Co-op and Marks and Spencer. The National Cyber Security Centre says the UK faces 4 nationally significant cyber attacks every single week, whilst the Financial Conduct Authority called on businesses to take action on the threat on Wednesday. And on every other day as well, I believe. JLR reportedly didn't have cyber insurance at the time of the attack. Shall I read that again? I find that staggering, even though I've read it about 20 times now. JLR apparently didn't have cyber insurance at the time of the attack. Why on earth not? And the government has since stepped up in to guarantee nearly £1.5 billion in loans to help as it restarts production. The move has caused controversy amid concerns over moral hazard across the British media. The Cyber Monitoring Centre's report echoes this, warning the government's intervention could create expectations for future events. Edward Lewis is the director of the Cyber Monitoring Centre and CEO at CYXL. Edward, extraordinary, but we know it goes on. In fact, I spoke to a CEO the other day, a big European CEO. He said, look, our guys try to prevent it, their guys try and breach as well. It's a hell of a lot of money spent back and forth trying to stop these cyber attacks, which happen every single day. Just tell us about the state of play, because this is not a new threat.
No, it's not, but the threat profile's changing. I also think we have a bit of a problem with building cyber programs generally. We've been caught in a 2018 era for far too long, where the emphasis has been disproportionately placed upon things like personal data. It's about data security and IT security. What JLR now shows is that things have pivoted quite dramatically, much more towards economic security at an organizational level and national economic security. I mean, let's make no mistake here, Steve. This isn't just another cyber headline. This was a macroeconomic event, and it was a very serious one for the UK.
That's extraordinary. We have so many questions for you. I'll ask a very basic, obvious one. I am flabbergasted, great word, flabbergasted that they didn't have cyber insurance. I mean, we've had insurers coming on this channel for a decade plus saying, you need cyber insurance, blah, 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 and obviously top of their risks. Is that just a massive faux pas from JLR?
Potentially. I mean, I don't know about what was going on in the placing of that insurance. What I do know is that even when you look at the available capacity in the insurance market, the sorts of towers that you can build, in contrast to the scale of loss here, even if they'd had an insurance policy in play, it's very unlikely that it would even have touched the sides of the financial exposure that they have experienced and are continuing to experience. Now, insurance plays a very, very valuable part in overall resilience of an organization. It's a key component, but it's not a panacea to all ills. And there's an element also that ties back to what I said in my opening. For too long, the emphasis when it's come to risk in the context of cyber has been upon personal data. It's about privacy harm. It's not been on operational resilience and interruption. And what I think the JLR incident will do, and what I hope it will catalyse, is bring much more squarely into focus the importance and the value of insurance in terms of assisting with that operational downtime, with business interruption loss and with dependent business interruption loss. So bad circumstances for JLR, but hopefully a significant catalyst now for others to wake up, realise the value in insurance, and hopefully we'll start to see the needle move on insurance purchase. When you look at the data in the UK, the eligible cohort of cyber buyers, in contrast with those that actually take up insurance, has grown year on year. but the take-up hasn't. It's remained static at around 10 to 15% of that eligible cohort. It's a vanishingly small number. So there are many organizations out there at the moment that don't have that insurance, but at a time when the market appetite is strong, we're overcapacitized and premiums are very low. So it's the perfect time now to look at insurance as an appropriate risk transfer mechanism for situations like this one.
On the back of an incident like the JLR cyber attack, what can we expect, you think, in terms of premiums? You said this is a great time to be taking out insurance because premiums are low, but surely, reports like the one you just put out on the economic impact of a cyber attack like this is going to drive those premiums higher.
Well, you'd think they would, but as I say, at the moment, the rush is not there that ought to be there. There will inevitably be a market correction, and I think as we start to see legislative change coming into the UK, there'll be a greater focus actually on what makes a good risk in contrast to a bad one. But right now, as I say, there's an excess of capacity in the market and premiums remain soft. So the transition isn't happening yet. We're not seeing that hardening. But I'm sure that over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, particularly as we see things like the Home Office's ransomware reforms, the cybersecurity and resilience bill coming into play, that'll start to change.
Edward, what do you think about this whole debate around moral hazard here? The UK government ultimately underwrote a large portion of the loans given to JLR to get through this period. And there's some concern now about the precedent this could set, that the US government is just going to step in and assist companies that haven't taken out the proper insurance, as you just outlined.
Well, look, let's be really clear. When government steps in to help stabilize suppliers, as it did here by the loan guarantee facility through UK Export Finance, the aim was to protect jobs and preserve production capacity. It wasn't to bail out poor cyber hygiene. And importantly, and I think this sort of hasn't been picked up as much as it should have been, JLR hasn't actually relied directly on any taxpayer funds. It's been able to secure its own commercial financing to support its supply chain. So that's a positive signal of both corporate strength and I think also of market confidence. But I agree, there's still a moral hazard if public intervention removes the incentive to invest in resilience. So we've got to get the balance right. We've got to get the balance between support on the one hand, but without subsidy on the other. It's about helping firms survive the shock while tying future access to public backing to demonstrable resilience standards. So if you don't patch your systems, if you don't test your suppliers and your supply chain, if you don't plan for recovery, you shouldn't expect the taxpayer to underwrite that risk. And what I would like to see, therefore, as a result of this, isn't so much debate about the moral hazards, it's actually to see government and regulators starting to link resilience performance more closely to things like market access, to the availability of credit, and also to procurement. If we turn resilience into value, that becomes incredibly investable. So there's a very, very positive story that we can build around this. And I think the emphasis on moral hazard, whilst right, probably distracts from where the real focus ought to be. And that's, as I say, how do you turn resilience into investment and into value?
Edward, I've kind of loved listening to this conversation and asking you questions. And I've kind of come down very firmly on the side of industrial policy. This should be an arm of. So actually, I think, why shouldn't the UK government as well? Why shouldn't the National Cyber Security Centre or GCHQ or MI5, whoever it is, I mean, you probably know way better than I do who it is, why shouldn't they support the companies, the key systemically important companies for our nation and other nations for that matter as well?
Well, Steve, they already do. They already do. And if you look at the National Cyber Security Centre, look at their resources, what they say, they are supporting UK PLC on a daily basis with some of the biggest incidents, the biggest attacks that we see. A lot of the time, those aren't reported in the press, but it is a resourcing issue and it's a scale issue at the same time. We can't expect the National Cyber Security Centre to be responsible for every business, for every organisation in the UK. The challenge would be hugely disproportionate. Resilience is a collective responsibility. So the NCSC is almost at the tip of the spear, doing incredible work to protect the UK from many, many of these attacks that we see on a daily basis, or actually that we don't see, but I can assure you are still happening. But we can't turn a blind eye organisationally either. We can't be complacent. Resilience must start at home, but there has to be incentivization to get that right, which is why I say the emphasis can't be on admonishment, it can't be so much on sanction and penalty, it shouldn't be victimizing the victims, it should be about encouraging a collective national understanding actually of the scale of this threat, what resilience really means day to day, but actually how pouring more energy, effort and resource into building resilience creates value and helps drive the UK economy forward. Because if we do that, that impacts real lives and livelihoods in a positive way, as opposed to the adverse way that we've seen with the JLR incident, M&S and Co-op this year.